Were wounded when the lone gunman invaded the Cleveland Elementary School in
death sentence on the author and his publisher.
A tragedy of monumental.
Battling an army set against them.
Communists have been forced to give solidarity a chance to govern.
Germans continued to flow across the wall and into the west.
Leaders met on the luxury liner with small talk and jokes about the weather.
A Year with Andy Rooney, 1989.
From year to year, most of us retain not much more than a shapeless memory of the year just passed. It has no form, no meaning, one event following another in a random manner. If there's a pattern to history, it's not obvious to us. Sometimes, long afterward, historians can force a pattern down over what happened and make the events conform to it. But patterns are hard to see close up. Even so, we all pretty much agree, I think, that looking at what's happened is a good way to predict what's going to happen. If we remember where we've been, it can help us get where we're going. For that reason, and because it's a lot of fun, it seems worthwhile once a year to look back at the events we've just lived through and try to make some shape out of them. And even though the shape I see will almost certainly not be the shape you see, perhaps in disagreeing with me, you'll come up with your own shape for 1989. This isn't going to be very funny, and it won't be nostalgic. There's no past we can bring back by longing for it.
This is Nicorette. Nicorette is nicotine gum. And Nicorette is available only from your doctor. Ask your doctor whether Nicorette is right for you.
They're only at Sears, this large capacity washer and dryer, both with permanent press cycles, both great deals. The washer, $287. The dryer, $247. At Sears and Sears Brand Central now.
Welcome to Lumina Sedan. It has been designed with care for you and yours.
Listen to the heartbeat.
With rear doors that open wide, plenty of room for the family to enjoy. And even Scotchgard fabric protector comes standard. The family Lumina Sedan. When it comes to new ideas, nobody's winning like.
The heartbeat of America, that's today's Chevrolet.
After the bitter campaign, the words bitter and campaign always go together now, George Bush and his vice presidential choice, Dan Quayle, were inaugurated. The man who for several months seemed to be leading the race to become president, Michael Dukakis, faded into obscurity everywhere but in his own state of Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, as governor and as husband, he was beset by problems.
Hi, Kate. You look terrific.
What's the best thing about being home?
Being with my husband.
Being with my wife. You guys are going to freeze. Okay.
While everything went wrong for Dukakis, everything went right for George Bush. The economy was strong, employment was stable, and the new president traveled. It was as if he was following the television anchormen around the world. Japan, China, South Korea, Belgium, West Germany, Great Britain, Poland, Hungary, Malta. President Bush even found time to take a relaxed summer vacation at his family vacation home in Kennebunkport, Maine. He played all the games he loved.
Jinx is broken.
President Bush made a more appealing president than he had been a candidate. He was hard to hate.
And I didn't feel there was any risk in getting into a little safe launch like that and going back out to the ship. It was sheer pleasure, really. Hot dogging? No. Well, you know, these charismatic, macho, visionary guys, they'll do anything. Yeah.
The only local and state elections that made big news were in New York City and Virginia.
I am here to claim to be the next governor of Virginia.
In retirement, the Reagans were relatively quiet. The former First Lady, Nancy Reagan, made news with her chatty book. Chatty, that is.
Ronnie was and is so well liked, so popular, that they had to take on somebody, and I was the logical person, I guess.
Of all the things the Japanese bought in America in 1989, none was more surprising than what they got for $2 million. Ronald Reagan. The courts seemed busier than ever with prominent people accused of breaking the law. Oliver North, Zsa Zsa Gabor.
The lights, the sirens, everything. He came up and just scared the life out of them.
Leona Helmsley. Jim and Tammy Baker.
Now, or some people want to pull the plug on it, so...
Tammy was sure God would get Jim off, but he didn't. The best-looking witness for anyone in any trial during the year was Colonel North's secretary, Fawn Hall.
I just like to say that hopefully the good guy will win.
How do you think it went today? How do you think it went?
Even more notable were the prominent Americans who were tried outside the courts. Pete Rose, who's hit a baseball with a bat more times in a professional game than any man dead or alive, was sentenced to capital punishment when he was forced to leave the game he loved after being accused of breaking the rules by betting on baseball games. Pete Rose is unlike the accuser, was a brilliant scholar of Renaissance literature and former president of Yale University, A. Bartlett Giamatti, who, as Bart Giamatti, served briefly as commissioner of baseball. A. Bartlett Giamatti died, probably from an excess of living, on September 1st.
Have I made mistakes? Oh, boy, how many? I made a lot of mistakes. Mistakes in judgment? Oh, yeah.
Speaker Jim Wright got the same sentence as Pete Rose when he was driven out of the only game he ever knew, politics. With the exception of abortion, no issue divided the country closer to in half than the question of how available a gun should be to anyone who wanted one.
Something far-reaching needs to be done to control these weapons.
Now, a lot of killings take place between people who know each other. That's true.
Because you have a gun?
Because I'd like to protect that right, a right which seems to be under attack.
Right. Your rights don't seem to be attacked. If this were a matter of attacking free speech in the press, I'm sure you would be quite outraged at this point.
We at Cleveland School and the rest of the country want to know, has there been enough suffering to warrant action now?
President Bush, a card-carrying member of the National Rifle Association, was soft on assault rifles.
I would strongly go after the criminals who use these guns, but I'm not about to suggest that a semi-automated hunting rifle be banned. Absolutely not.
The strongest case against guns was provided not by the people who were against them, but by the people who had them. We became accustomed to the ritual of the televised report of the murder, first the house or building in which the murder or murders took place, then the body or bodies being wheeled out on the gurneys by police. Next, a layout of weapons confiscated by police. Nowhere in the world is this kind of murder so prevalent as it is in the United States. Although in Canada earlier this month, a madman with a gun sought out and killed 14 young women at the University of Montreal. In spite of all the evidence that the easy availability of guns was a bad idea that often led to the violent death of innocent people, a great many Americans associated guns with freedom, the flag, and the American way.
We're talking about banning the AK-47,
We're not going to assist you to
semi-automatic
ban
gun.
any firearms.
Pardon?
We're not going to assist you in attempting to ban any firearms.
Until just a few years ago, when you said drugs, you meant medicines compounded for their salutary effect on the human body. In 1989, drugs meant a mind-altering substance taken as entertainment by people who found life itself not interesting enough. Addicts tried, with drugs, to transport themselves into some mystic world where there was nothing but pleasure, and found nothing but pain, misery, and death. The lords of cocaine and heroin shipped their evil powders here 1,000 clever ways.
After a lengthy search, they found the drugs in a hidden chamber cemented beneath a carpeted passageway.
And for every ton that was discovered, 10 tons got in undetected. Authorities kept announcing the biggest drug bust ever.
This is one, and it's a hell of a lot of drugs. But there's a lot more out there.
Nothing, though, seemed to diminish the quantity of drugs available or their popularity. In one instance, kids in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, played drug dealer by pretending to sell crack instead of lemonade.
It is scary. It absolutely is scary because these kids are our next generation.
The catchphrase for politicians was the war on drugs. If it was war, the United States, population 245 million, lost the war in 1989 to Colombia, population 32 million. Drug czars there created near anarchy by murdering judges, murdering police, and murdering political opponents. On December 6th, the drug trade parked a truck loaded with half a ton of dynamite in front of the Colombian Secret Service office, touched it off, and killed 35 people. In this one country, Colombia, the criminals seem to wield more power than the police. A frightening prospect for our own country to consider when power so often seems close to parity. During his election campaign, George Bush often said he wanted to be the education president.
And believe me, I will be the education president for the 90s for the United States of America.
Commissions were established to study the problems of the schools. Everyone was generally agreed that schools were not educating children very well. The fault was assumed to lie with schools and teachers. No one wanted to suggest it might be the fault of the parents and the children. No one wanted to entertain the thought that we have some kids who are hard to educate, no matter how good the schools and teachers are.